Okay, so obviously this game is a horror game, so it's going to have the things on screen right now. So it has themes of violence, death, body horror, chronic illness, grief, and dysfunctional relationships. Every night I find myself alone in the studio, curtains drawn tight, my neat rows of paints, palette, and brushes in the same place on the drawer by the easel. The canvas upon it sits, as always, unfinished, Marie's half-painted face frozen in an empty song. It's laid out, as it always is when I awaken here. Marie is nowhere to be found. She must still be at the theater. Even when the curtains fall and the stage lights dim, the night is forever young to its star sopranos. I would always wait outside her dressing room, roses in hand, scores of other bright-eyed admirers spilling through the halls, though she alone was mine. And I was hers. It's cold, bitterly cold tonight, but I still draw the curtains and open the windows wide. There's a stench in the room, deep and damp and sickly sweet, that I can't ever seem to be rid of. Beside that, the fumes from the linseed oil make my head spin. Like every night, I measure out my paints, arrange the small dabs of color on my palette from lightest to darkest. Titanium white and cadmium yellow, to corpse brown and lamp black. I wet my brush with oil and gently start mixing the pigments. It feels just a little bit like magic, watching them swirl and mix, forming new colors from old. I think I paint her hair. Actually, I feel like with this being a gothic horror, kind of romancy, pining thing, maybe I paint her face. I mix a tone as pale as her skin and apply it with a generous dab of oil to the Marie on my canvas. But the paint just doesn't blend. The color on her cheeks stands out like a garish smear. I sigh and scrape it off with a palette knife, and mix a deep blend of black and red for the background instead. I must have painted and repainted the same background countless times. To say it's difficult to paint by lamplight, my muse nowhere in sight, is an understatement, of course. But lately, these nightly hours are the only time I find myself able to lift my brush. I stop every few strokes. Spirits, it hurts. I had joked that the pain that forced me away from the tailor's shop meant that I could finally return to my paintings, at the very least. I was never any good at humor. Marie had sensed my worries, consoled me sweetly in her voice that could charm a stone to life. Oh, Sam, don't worry. I have roles lined up for months. Go ahead and paint. We can still live comfortably. It hurt, a small part of it did, beyond the physical, beyond the ailments, to seek her permission. To be unable to care for my darling, the way I had when we were young, brimming with talent but crushingly unknown. Well, she had been. I was, and still am, nothing. But perhaps, finally, it would now be my turn to bring my vision into the world. If only it didn't hurt so damn much. Time passes and I still don't manage more than a few strokes, a small patch of dark over an already wet canvas. Or perhaps time hasn't passed at all. The broken clock on the wall would suggest as much. You just said it's broken. I can hear the ticking, dude. Perhaps the seconds have lain still, the world outside unchanging, and I, the only thing that moves. Have I moved? Is repeating the same brushstrokes like a clockwork doll movement? I shiver and sigh. Perhaps sleep would be a better endeavor. Perhaps the next night will meet more success. I stand, setting aside my paints and palette, and slowly move to shut the windows. I stop. There, out in the front garden, barely lit by a street lamp, stands a figure that can only be Marie. She bids goodbye to another figure, tall and broad-shouldered, and then she laughs. A beautiful laugh, a heartfelt laugh, and embraces him before he makes his reluctant exit on a carriage stopped by the gate. For a moment, I don't know what to think. A friend? A co-star? Perhaps that amiable tenor she mentioned every now and then? I didn't see his face, but Marie's social circle has always eclipsed my own. It must be. But why would he come to our home? Why would she laugh that way? In the garden, in the midst of walking to the front door, humming to herself, Marie suddenly looks up. For a moment her eyes go wide, and she blinks as if shaking herself from a daze. I instinctively step back from the windows. Perhaps it's guilt that makes me do so? Marie is finally home, and I've missed her so. How could the first thing I think upon seeing my darling be the worst thoughts my mind could conjure? For the first time in many, many nights, I feel just well enough to leave the studio. I'll prepare Marie a pot of her favorite chamomile tea. I'll listen as she tells me of the nights, the theater, the thousand small anecdotes she never runs out of, and maybe, just maybe, ask her again to sit for a portrait for me. Like she used to. I don't know. I think it's like a toxic relationship thing rather than possession. The house feels larger than it used to. Perhaps I was shut in the studio too long. Still, how could I so quickly become a stranger to my own home? The memories are fuzzy. The years blur together like a wash of oil colors. My mother and I carrying our sparse luggage, stepping inside for the first time. My stepfather laughing, his elbows on the breakfast table, chattering over something he'd read in the paper. But, you're not supposed to put your elbows on the table. Bad manners. Then silent hallways and empty rooms. And then myself, welcoming my new bride to these solitary halls, hanging our newly taken portraits above the mantel. The walls are barren now. I feel the walls in the dark, leaving sticky trails of paint behind, tracing the places where I used to hang. I think it would be the paintings. This feels like a story in a place where there would be paintings rather than photographs on the wall. The paintings I'd framed, the seaside landscape I'd painted on our honeymoon, the watercolor sketch of Marie that couldn't hope to capture the sheen of her hair, the still life of roses in a cracked vase. Oh, how my darling loves roses. Gone, cleared away. The naked walls stare blankly at me. Confused, but with nowhere else to go, I continue through the house. As I walk, I pass the furniture my stepfather left me. The shelves and tables that always seemed so large and grand as a boy, now missing or mantled in thick white linen. They remind me of corpses on a hospital table, lying dead still, covered in sheets. Marie? I try to call out, but phlegm blocks my throat. I cough long and drawn and wet, and then once more attempt to voice her name. Marie? It slicks off my tongue like a serpent uncoiling. I had always loved her name, so tender and sweet, free of harsh syllables. Marie. It was a name like an impressionist floor, painted in soft strokes with a fine oil brush. It was the greatest joy in the world to join my name to hers. Silence fills the halls, a long, drawn-out silence, a held breath. Finally, my darling answers. Sam? Is this a dream? I wonder if we're dead. I cough again, another long wet trail dripping from my lips. Is it a good dream, darling? I don't know. It feels like a nightmare. An awful, wretched nightmare. Then you know it doesn't feel like a good dream. I limp towards the sound of her voice. So musical, so lovely, even to the brink of tears. Don't cry, darling, I want to say, but thick, syrupy liquid fills my throat. No matter what troubles you, I am here. Yeah, we're super dead. Yeah. She stands at the edge of the staircase, shaking, a candlestick in hand. The steps are sticky and wet. I inch carefully, practically at a crawl, not to slip. My darling lifts the candle as I approach. In the dark of the house, its flickering flame almost blinds me. I don't see the expression on her face as she screams. I do appreciate the fact that they didn't have like the stereotypical like AAAAAH sort of like text thing, because I always feel so awkward trying to read that. I'm like, the fact that she just screamed in the narration, I very much appreciate. Marie, where are you, my darling? Every word feels like a dagger puncturing my throat. I limp down each hall, leaving a trail of steps that feel damp and heavy, slick and wet. I try the door to our bedroom. No, Marie's room. I had started sleeping in the spare one when my coughing fits would wake her in the night. It was cold, so cold, alone, but my darling needed her rest. The knob is slick and hard to twist, my hand slipping on the brass. Finally, I managed to push the door open. Though it's completely dark when I peer inside, I know it's empty. No warmth, no flesh, no sound of sweet breath within. I continue down the hall. I trudge, my steps heavy and wet, trying not to slip over the thick, slick surface. Marie? What's wrong, darling? Please come out. I don't understand. The dining room is empty, truly empty. The shelves where the china and silverware were once neatly stacked now gape hollow. The walnut table is covered in a thick white sheet, the matching set of chairs removed. I rest against the blanketed table. My hand leaves a ruddy smear against the sheet. It must be more paint, though it's hard to make out in the dark. I'd needed spectacles for quite some time, but Marie had never liked the bookish type. Well, she's wrong. Glasses are awesome, and the word spectacles is even better. I continue on through the familiar yet unfamiliar house. My steps strained and slow, my breath short, sticky, wet. Marie? Where are you? Oh, Marie, it hurts. Won't you come to me? I hear the front door slam shut. It must be freezing cold out. Why has she gone to the garden? I tread to the sound with new urgency, uncaring of the sticky, wet floors, forgetting for just a moment that the pain that snaps and burns through my flesh. I reach for the oily, damp knob. Don't, Sam. Please. Her voice rings from behind the door. I don't understand, darling. Have I done something to upset you? Her sobs echo loudly. I never thought an ugly sound could come out from my darling's lips, but her words. I love you, Sam. I always will. But I can't bear to see you like this. Please, I beg of you, return to where you came. You can't be here. I've moved on now. What? Return where? Dearest, you aren't making sense. Moved on? I'm your husband, Marie. What on earth is there to move on from? Please remember, Sam. Needs that little kid from The Sixth Sense. You were ill. You were ill for a long, long time, and you never recovered. I know that I'm unwell, Marie, but you said that we would still... Are you leaving me? Because I can't care for you anymore? Is that why? You left me. You're dead, Sam. You've been dead for more than a year. If this is a joke, darling, it's a cruel one. Do you want me dead? Is that it? Am I better off dead to you? My darling does nothing but sob behind the door. How quickly I regret my words. Oh, if only I could see her face, look into her eyes, reassure her, and see that she loves me still. I twist the knob with slick, oily hands. No, don't come out, please. On the other end, with a sharp gasp, my darling grasps the knob closed, pushing the weight of her small frame against the weathered wood. Don't come out. Oh, the part of me that's feeling very sympathetic for them really wants to let her go. But the part of me who loves spooky wants to force the door open. Depending on if this is extremely short, we might let her go and then load back in and skip through everything to this, so that way we can see what the second option is. So yeah, let's let her go. I let go of the door, my hand slicking off its oily surface. Forgive me, Marie. I can see you don't wish to speak to me right now. But whenever you do, whatever this is about, I'll be waiting in the studio. I leave the door. I leave my darling alone, sobbing in the garden. It's dark, so very dark. What dawn will soon paint that dim, black sky. I retrace my slick, wet footsteps through the hall, up the staircase, one trudging, damp step at a time. Spirits, it hurts. It burns. I feel no breath in my lungs. My chest would be a hollow cavity, slippery and wet, and spilling with hot, sticky fluid. It hurts. Oh, it hurts. I stagger into a tall, sheet-covered object, the linen sliding off with the grasp of my clumsy, slick fingers. It's Marie's floor-length mirror. Jump scare time? No. Oh, no. No, 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 no. I'm in the studio. A dark, dim studio, as empty as it is every night. The curtains are shut. The lamps are unlit. My palette is a mess of murky colors. Rust reds, corpse browns. A musky, sickly sweet, rotting stench fills the room. I don't know why the smell of linseed oil ever bothered me. After all, I no longer breathe. The handle of the door turns behind me. Slowly, it creaks open, and a figure steps inside. It's me. He limps more than he steps in crooked motions against the floor, dragging his body along like a wet, wide brush as swaths of red pool at his feet. I watch him pull himself before the canvas. Icon of affliction. Interesting. Samuel. He speaks in my mother's voice. A pitched cry of command and dependency, derision and affection, pride and disappointment. Give up your suffering. Give up this. Come into the earth with me. My hands are too slick to hold my brush. I stab it into my flesh and fix it between my bones, then dip the bristles into his blood. I feel like there's got to be a more efficient way to do that. Sammy. He speaks in my stepfather's voice, wistful, choking back tears, the same cadence of his goodbye as he hugged me against his uniform, the dog tags cold around his neck. Oh, this is a different one. This is the icon of Algesia? That's not a word I'm familiar with. Don't suffer anymore, Sam. Forget your pain. You are nothing already. Come into the void with us. My brush is drying. I plunge it into his chest, wet it with his oily breath. Okay, icon of agony this time. Sam. He speaks with my voice, hoarse and raspy and tired, so very, very tired. This won't make you worthy of love. Not the world's, not Marie's, not your friends or peers or critics. Come back to our grave. End our suffering. You know I don't do this for love. I clean my brush with the paint thinner, knocking over the jar as it spills across the drawer and onto the wet and soaken floor. I dry the bristles on my worn, rotting shirt, and then soak it in the thick, white mucus of his tears. Gross. My words are only partially true, just as his words are not fully wrong. Neither my rotting corpse nor the memory of what was once Sam will gain a thing from this toil. I paint the hours away, or perhaps take no time at all. The clock on the wall never turns its hands, suggesting that the world lies still. The seconds never pass, and I am the only thing that moves within it. It hurts. Oh, it hurts. Heavy, syrupy tears flood my vision, fill my throat, my chest, choking me. Every movement of my hands leaves cracks in what's left of my brittle bones. He stares at me all the while, silent, still, like a mirror. If I loved him, I would stop. I would crawl to my grave like he wishes. But I love this more than I love myself. I birth him from within me, As I create, so too am I born. And he and I are beautiful. I mean, that is lovely. It really gives me Castlevania vibes. Like, that artist who does, I think, Castlevania Symphony of the Night and some of the Final Fantasy artwork, Amano. Okay, ending number 2, self-portrait. I don't think I even noticed that there were some voice clips from Sam in there. Well, that was a lovely little game. I am going to start it again and choose some of the other options because I do want to see what happens. So we chose her face last time. Let's choose her hair this time. I blend a dark, deep red and apply it with a generous dab of oil to a patch of background that blends with Marie's hair. I didn't have to. The paint is still wet from the last night and the night before. I must have painted and repainted the same background countless times. To say it's... Okay, and then... Yeah, we've already read this part, so we can skip. So last time I chose the paintings. So let's do the photographs this time. The walls are laid bare. The pictures that hung on the pale wallpaper are gone. Blurry gray photographs of my parents, myself as a boy, and Marie. Oh, so many pictures of Marie, each displayed in a filigree frame. Gone. The pale wallpaper stands bare, stripped to its bones. Confused but with nowhere else to go, I continue through the house. Okay, then we saw this already. Okay, so now we're going to try to force the door open. No, not until you tell me what's going on. Are you leaving me, darling? After everything? I need you. I need you. My darling utters a sharp cry as the hinges groan against the frame, loosening her grip as she stumbles back onto the cobblestone path. I instantly forget her sharp words as I limp towards her side. Marie, are you all right? I'm so sorry. Stop it, Sam. I'll keep you alive. Every time I sing for you. I'll keep you in my song, in my art. Oh, but it hurts. Her shrill voice grates against the ooze spilling forth from my ears. It hurts. It hurts. My head rings. My chest is a hollow cavity. Slippery and wet, flowing with hot, sticky fluid. I cough and spew more syrup, a syrupy, warm liquid from my lips. Your art? It was always about you. Your fame, your voice, your needs, your wants, your desires. You were a work of art, of course. But did you ever think about me? Did you ever think about poor Sam, dying alone in a cold white room? Poor Sam, who couldn't even hold a brush in his hands at the end? Poor Sam, left to rot into nothing. A year was all it took to forget me? I'm shaking her, leaving smears of dark, muddy paint over her pale shoulders. The next moment, she breaks from me, running blindly into the street. The carriage doesn't stop for her. Of course it doesn't. My dearest is a wisp of dark curls, a black gown billowing in the night like a shade. She should be light as a breath, soft as mist. But the song that comes is the scream of her breaking bones, her ripping flesh, the breath that leaves her lungs. Ah, but every sound my darling makes is beautiful. I scoop her mass of flesh and deep crimson hair in my arms. Her blood pools around me, syrupy and dark, a color so deep no artist's pigment could hope to capture. The purest scarlet or vermilion red, a dull stain in comparison. It is not Sam that I see staring back in the deep pool of our blood. My darling is a lovely creature, even broken. I gently carry her up the steps, one slick, damp, crooked step at a time, setting her mass of jutted bone, of viscera and flesh on the velvet seat in my studio. Put a towel under that, come on. The fabric, see? The fabric soaks it deep, so very deep. It's dark, as it is every night. I leave the lamps unlit, the windows shut tight. How strange that the stench of linseed oil ever bothered me. After all, I no longer breathe. My darling sits still, ever so still, not a breath escaping her broken flesh. What a lovely model. Oh, what a wonderful thing. The icon of agony. All the more beautiful now that it surely hurts to sing. Oh, it is agony to hold a brush. It is, or it always is. But I can bear it. After all, who can truly create without pain? Well, I mean, that was beautiful for a second. Ending 1, Muse. What's in the gallery? Does it just show me those two? Yeah, it must just be because I don't have anything else, like, unlocked.